Hi, my name is Dr. Sean M. Nicholson, and this is Kingdom Business, where we are growing ministry and business. Our goal is for you to see what the intersection of ministry and business. Each week, we're bringing a phenomenal opportunity for you, the viewers, to tune in to see topics that can speak to your personal as well as your professional goals, as I reveal how I'm able to keep God at the center of it all. Okay, as I famously say, let's go. Listen, we got a powerful show for you on today. This is Black History Month. And in this episode, we're focusing on individuals and businesses that have paved the way and made significant inroads within our history, as well as spotlighting religious movements or denominations and churches that date back to the 1800s that remain relevant and have stood the test of time. Now, the exciting thing about in the business is that we keep the conversation going. Even when we're not sharing anything, I want you to reach out to me with your questions, your comments, your concerns. I'm listening online at KBizWorld on Twitter or on Facebook at Kingdom Business 7. You can also feel free to email me at contact@kingdombusiness.world. We'll be listening, ready to take your calls and your questions so that we can move through this particular season, Kingdom Business Season 2, and then specifically Black History Month. All right, let's go. All right, all right. We are back. We are back. And I am excited about this particular episode. You know, I do a lot of reading. There's a lot of resources out that help understand Black history, that help understand history, that help give us tools and resources to cultivate the things that we do so that we can leave a legacy. You know, in the Bible, specifically in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22, it says, "A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children." And then it says in part B, "And the wealth of the sinner or the wicked is laid up for the just or the righteous." Today, I want to spotlight Black Fortunes. Black Fortunes is a book that I have read. I love this book. The author is Shamari Willis. This particular book was dedicated to those that came through this country in bondage and persevered and revealed our Black culture, the true greatness. And he spotlights several different people throughout this book. I want to highlight one particular one. Now, this is the story of the first six African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. And today, I want to highlight one person, individual, which is named John Mott Drew. John Mott Drew. Now, Mr. Drew was born in 1883, and he was known to be a boisterous man with a hearty laugh and who was dressed in all black three-piece suits. His father, Napoleon Bonaparte Drew, was enslaved and on a plantation called Belmead. And get this, it was in Powhatan, Virginia. Zealous work ethic and an innate sense of self confidence, which was passed down to his children. After the emancipation, he bought the farm in 1867 near the plantation, or bought a farm near the plantation where he had been enslaved, and became the first Black person in Powhatan County to own property. In 1875, he rented out his farmland, and Napoleon moved north to Darby, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia. Put a side note for those of you that know me, I am an Eagles fan and have been since 1985. And I digress. Well, anyway, he moved to the suburb of Philadelphia with his wife and his three sons and daughter. When his children had reached adulthood, Napoleon sold most of the land in Powhatan. He said, "Take the money from my land and make something of yourselves." This is what he told his children. In 1901, Simon Drew, his eldest son, opened an ice house in Derby where he sold oysters and beer and ice cream. Simon was known for the parties that he threw in his restaurants, as well as being a lookalike for Frederick Douglass, with long white hair, smooth black, tightly and distinguished beard. After opening these restaurants or that restaurant, she bought a four-apartment building in the black suburbs of Philadelphia and he became a landlord. John Drew, which is the one that I want to spotlight on today, was an even shrewder investor. John started his career in real estate like Simon, but he eventually branched out to other more lucrative businesses. In 1919, he noticed that people in the mixed race of town in the place of Yard, I think it was called Yaden and Darby, where he also lived, had no way to get to work in Philadelphia, and which was a nearby town called Lansdowne in Pennsylvania. Now, I am told, another side note, I'm told that my grandfather used to say this: if you want to make a lot of money, you do something either someone doesn't want to do or don't know or doesn't have or can't do, rather. If you want to make a lot of money, you do something someone doesn't want to do or can't do. Now, Mr. Drew took matters into his own hands and he bought a bus and he began driving this route from the suburbs to the city. So he founded the John Drew bus line. He became the first African American to own a bus line. The enterprise grew over time, adding six buses to its fleet and several dozen employees. In 1930, he sold his business to a large conglomerate under the condition that it would retain his black employees and never allow segregation on his bus route. Mr. Drew, John Drew, also had multiple streams of revenue or income. He was also a stock trader. He knew that directly trading stocks himself would prove to be extremely difficult, and he hired a white broker to trade secretly on his behalf. During the Roaring Twenties, as it's referred to, John invested the profits from his bus company sale into the stock market and benefited from historically profitable bull market, if you will. In the late 1920s, sensing the roaring stock market entered into this particular bubble, he told his broker to pull all his money out and he walked away with over $250,000. Now, that may not seem like a lot of money to you, but let's go back to 1920s or in the 1920s. 250K was equivalent in its purchasing power to about almost $3.5 million today. That's an increase of over $323 million over a 102-year period of time. John Drew's story dates further back than today's Black elite. You see, the creation of Black wealth is an important but overlooked subject in the economic and social history of the United States of America. African Americans were treated as property during slavery and were stripped of their economic and their social personhood. And they were sometimes, or mostly all the time, reduced to commodities to be controlled, managed, and bought and sold and underwritten and even leveraged in some instances. Attaining economic independence and power was a revolutionary act. John Drew outstood all of those different things during this particular time in Black history. You know, it is very important for me to highlight these things because as a businessman, I learn from those that have come before me. As a businessman, I'm able to identify and understand the plight and the toils and the things that they had to go through, and we're literally standing on their shoulders today. It is just amazing how we can find and learn so many things through history. And I believe, and I would say that those will, I know those that share the same sentiments, that Black history is not just a month, it's every day. It's just a matter of finding the information so that you can become better in all of that. You know, I want you to understand this, that this particular broadcast, Kingdom Business, Growing Ministry and Business, is very important as we spotlight or we show where the intersections of ministry and business meet. Some may argue that ministries, you should not have businesses, or ministries should not operate as business, but the infrastructure of those businesses are very important. The infrastructure of the company or the church is very important because it can stay relevant. It can stand, let's say, a global pandemic such as what? COVID-19, that we're in our second year of that and still changing. Churches are having to shut down. Churches are having to pivot and move to virtual space. Churches are not able to function in the manner that they are accustomed. Businesses as well. And that's why Kingdom Business is here to show you where the intersections of ministry and business are so that you can have the tools and the resources based on history, dealing with the present, that will hopefully set you up for the future. Okay. Listen, don't forget, we're listening to you online, and I want you to reach out to me with your questions, your comments, your concerns by emailing me at contact@kingdombusiness.world. We can always hit you back with an answer on our next episode. But listen, you got to keep watching. You got to stay engaged so that we can keep the conversation going. Now, as I always like to say, we're going to take a quick short break to pay some of these bills, but you don't want to miss what we have coming up on the next side or on the other side. I got something special that I want to share with you. All right. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're back. And I'm Dr. Sean M. Nicholson, and this is Kingdom Business, where we're growing ministry and business. And as I say, each week we're showing where the intersection of ministry and business meet. Well, those of you that are just tuning in, this is Black History Month, and this entire month is dedicated solely to those individuals and businesses that have paved the way for a lot of us on today. And not only the businesses, but the churches alike. Every episode, I want to highlight, and we try to highlight businesses or individuals, as well as churches and ministries that are making an impact in our communities. And that's why it is important for you to tune in each week to be able to glean and to understand these different things that we're talking about. Now, as it relates to the Black church in America, listen, this dates back to 1758. And there was an institution was the source of the ownership of Black American slaves or Black African slaves in America, and is viewed as a reason of those being oppressed during these times. During the decades of Southern slavery and American slave associations were a constant source and concern to slave owners. And for many members of the white society, Black religious meetings symbolizes the ultimate threat of the white existence. Nevertheless, African slaves established and relied heavily on their churches, and religion offered a means of acceptance and involvement in dealing with these hard times that they had to encounter. As one slave recounting, the white folks would come in when the colored people would have a prayer meeting and whip every one of them. Most of them thought that when colored people, as they referred to it, were praying, it was against them. Religious exercises of slaves were closely watched to detect plans for escape or insurrection. Black churches showed an air of militancy, if you will, in the eyes of white American. Insurrections such as here in Northern Virginia, Nat Turner's in Southampton County, Virginia, born out of the religious inspiration of slaves, horrified white Americans, understanding the potential end which could result from the religious experiences of American slaves. The church has long been a center of the Black community. It has established itself as the greatest resource of Black religious enrichment and secular development. This development is embodied in Christianity, and the term the Black church presents many details of racial and religious lifestyles unique to Black history. In essence, the term the Black church is a misnomer, if you will. It implies that all Black churches share and have shared the same aspiration and strategies for creating cohesiveness African American in the African American communities. This is not true at all, and there were a number of differences found among the Black communities, which were reflected within their community churches. Black communities offered from region or differed from region to region. They were divided along social lines, composed of persons from different economic levels, and maintained variety or varying political philosophies. Black communities in the inner cities of the United States have traditionally deferred from, deferred basically from the rural areas and etc. The Negro Church, as it was referred to in America, Methodist and Baptist denominations and were separate church organizations based upon the distinction of color of what were considered the standard of civilization and behavior. Organized, political, and spiritual Black churches were not only giving to the teachings of Christianity, but were faithfully relied upon to address the specific issues which affected their members. For many African American Christians, regardless of the denominational differences, Black churches have always represented their religion, their community, and home. Scholars have repeatedly asserted that Black history and the Black church history overlap enough for there's basically virtually identical. One of the first known Black churches in America was created before the American Revolution around 1758, called the African Baptist or Bluestone Church. This house of worship was founded on the William Byrd plantation near Bluestone River in Mecklenburg, Virginia. Do you know there's a lot of history here in Virginia? Africans at this time believed that only the adult baptism by total immersion was doctrinally correct. Black people in America also supported the autonomy of their congregations to make decisions independent of larger church bodies. Other early Black church milestones included Baptist and Episcopal denomination. The first American Baptist Church of Savannah, Georgia began in 1777, and this is said to be, here it is, the oldest Black church in North America. Originally called the first colored church, the pastoral life of George Lilly's preaching tied it to its beginning. Woo! Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. I'm telling you, it is important to understand where we are and where we are going. Many Black churches discreetly doubted or doubled as stations for the Underground Railroad. At the time, white Southerners still sought to maintain control over African American worship, both religious and for religious as well as social reasons. Such services typically emphasize the responsibility of slaves to be obedient and provide biblical justification for Black bondage. Slaves had no voice in church affairs and were relegated to the rear of the church or the gallery as spectators rather full members of the congregation. Now, I want to leave this with you here. After the emancipation, Black churches became virtually the only place that African Americans could find refuge. Blacks moved away from the hush harbors and that they were treated for a solace as slaves. Formerly, during this particular time, the church separation petition was filed. 38 Black members for a predominantly white Fairfield Baptist Church in Northumberland County, here again in Virginia, in 1867, referring to new political and social statutes of Blacks. The petitioners said they wanted they wanted to place ourselves where we could be best promoted and mutually good and suggested, and the separate church organization as the best possible way to do that. A month later, the white members of the church unanimously acceded that the petitioner's request, settling the stage of the creation of an all-Black Shiloh Baptist Church. I tell you, listen, Black history is every day. Well, this has been great, and this is the fastest moving show on the internet. I tell you, this is a way that we can talk to you and to present information to each one of you. Now, that's all we have for today, but I hope you've learned a valuable lesson that you can start living today. But before I go, I want to leave you with what I refer to as my KBiz note of the week to inspire you until we meet again. Black millionaires disrupt stereotypes of economic impotence. They remind us that African Americans do not lack the desire or the ability to work or build businesses in wealth, but that instead they have often had to overcome great struggles to achieve economic stability, let alone independence and power. Madam C.J. Walker was memorialized as the first Black millionaire, not because she was the first to achieve wealth, she was far from the first, but because she was the one or was one of the first African Americans to flaunt and to claim her wealth openly as well as fearlessly. The earliest Black millionaires were conditioned not to be so bracing. My name is Dr. Sean M. Nicholson, and this has been Kingdom Business, where we're growing ministry and business. Don't forget, you can keep the conversation going at Kingdom Business 7. I'll see you every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the powernetwork.tv. Remember, passion is the ability to pass I on. So until the next time, take care. We'll see you.